And we are live. I'm going to say good morning. Good evening. Today is the 19th of January, 2026. We are already halfway through the first month of the new year. Today is also Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Hopefully people did something positive to recognize and or celebrate him. I know I couldn't be in two places at one time. Organization I belong to, I'm on the board of 100 Black Men in Southeast Michigan, and Greater Detroit, 100 Black Men in Greater Detroit. We participated in the Southfield event. I provided the books to the organization that were given away today, and most of the books, it was over 100 books, were given away free of charge, just to encourage our people to understand the importance of educating themselves and reading books. And then the nonprofit I work for and belong to, Michigan Urban Youth Alliance, we had a Dr. Martin Luther King Invitational Basketball Tournament that consisted of 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th graders, 8 teams, and it's been a long day. I've been up since 6 this morning. You also have the National Championship game going on right now. Miami Hurricanes and the Indiana Hoosiers. Last I saw it was 3-0. And I'm trying to not learn the score because I want to rewind it once we finish this podcast so I could go see it from the time I stopped watching it, which is the timing was great because it went to a commercial right before we started this. And again, for those that are joining us, this is Detroit in Black and White presents Reality Strikes with Eric Brown. And I want everyone that is watching to like, subscribe, share. That's one of the things we always ask of the viewers of the Detroit in Black and White channel. Detroit in Black and White is brought to you 5 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as well as Saturday. So 4 times a week. Twice on Friday, you have Deadline Detroit Weekend Review, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Then you have the 8:30 edition on Friday, 8:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m. edition on Wednesday, and then my show, Reality Strikes, on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. I want to welcome Mr. 1213. Got a very early start. He came on about 8:28. He's a regular viewer to the Detroit in Black and White platform. Pastor Nicole Blackman, who is the bride of Pastor Hunt. Shout out to your Mrs. there, Pastor Hunter, First Lady. And then I also want to recognize William Martin, 9196. So I want to thank him for joining us this evening. As people come on, I will recognize them even in the course of, you guys maybe talking. And then if you see comments, if it's a comment directed at you, Brother Thompson, Pastor Hunt, we will address it as we see fit. And I think the importance of today's show is it's on Dr. Martin Luther King Day. It's a show about redemption. Both of you have spent some time behind bars. You did not allow that to define you. Both of you are doing some amazing work in the community. Of course, Brother Tez, I can, talk about a lot of things you're doing in the community, how impactful you are as it relates to being purposeful in the community. A lot of that has to do with a tribute to your sister, as well as the commitment you have to your son to show him how to be a better man and learn from mistakes. And then Pastor Hunt has a different angle with regards to his time because he was not out, doing bad things. He got caught up by way of an overzealous prosecutor. Welcome to the show this evening, Jill Sheridan, Miss Sheila. Welcome as well. They are regular viewers to Detroit in Black and White platform. So I will start with you, Pastor Hunt, since Brother Thompson has been here before. Introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and whatever you feel is pertinent before we get into the Q&A. And then I will go to Brother Thompson and let him introduce himself and talk about the amazing things he's doing in the community, particularly working with young Black men, being a great role model for his son and things of that nature. So, Pastor Hunt, I'll give you the platform, give you the floor to introduce yourself. Can you hear me, Pastor Hunt?
All right. Thanks, Eric, for having me on. Pastor Ricky Hunt here in Detroit, Michigan, Farmington, Michigan. This is about my second year being in the Michigan area. We do installation for commercial new industrial facilities. I've been involved in the trade for well over 25 years plus. So this is my second year here, but we also have locations in the Milwaukee, Madison, and now Illinois area. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with the listeners about my experience with the judicial system and how it did not work in my favor. And we're still struggling, we're still fighting for justice. And I understand what it feels like right now to be unjustly treated as a result of the experience that I had with the judicial system. Before getting involved in this car accident that I was involved in, which caused me a loss of 12 years of my life, I can better understand what an individual encounters and or goes through when they're incarcerated and then released, where before I didn't have that concept or have the understanding of what a person really encounters, the things that they suffer, the institutionalization of the person's mind after being in and being released from prison. Now, I was involved in a car accident, had an overtaken with an ailment or sickness that was not familiar, I wasn't too familiar with. Had drove in from the Memphis, Tennessee area to look at a project because I'm a mechanical engineer. So I came to look at a project there in Jefferson, Wisconsin, and left out to go to lunch and ended up having a seizure episode. As a result of that, I wasn't totally conscious or aware of what was going on. Ended up running into about 6 cars. The last car I hit was at an impact of 78 miles an hour. No one passed, no fatalities that had taken place. But I ended up, as you stated, a prosecutor that was running for re-election, trying to get under his belt the amount of cases that he had prosecuted, the amount of people that he had sent to jail. So he was trying to build himself up to later run to be a judge in Jefferson County. And unfortunately, I was one of those persons that he was able to use as a notch in his belt to propel him into the next career area that he wanted to get into. As a result of that car accident, I ended up spending 12 years. Wow. Go ahead.
In Jefferson County, that's part of the Memphis area, correct? Can you hear me, Pastor Hunt?
Go from Memphis to Jefferson, Wisconsin. Okay. They wanted to build a power plant in that area. Because my company deals process piping, plumbing, they asked me to collaborate with a major contractor in that area to build a new petroleum piping system there in Jefferson, Wisconsin. So one day I decided to go out to lunch and ended up involved in a car accident. And it was like all downhill from there. Just as I'm pastoring now, I was pastoring before I entered into the judicial, the prison system. So I didn't have, I had a lot of encounters with, it was one of the times that I had any contact.
And your book Shadow of Darkness, that is
actually on any level.
In your book, that's part of your experience behind the bars as well, correct? Pastor Hunt.
I think his connection might not be good.
Yeah, like he has a connection problem. And before I get back to, now I was asking, your book, Shadow of Darkness, is that predicated on your experience?
Like I said, I had never been in that type of position before. It was when I was incarcerated, it all became a shadow. It became darkness to me. There are a lot of things that I was not familiar with, but after being there for a while, I got kind of accustomed to the flow of what the incarceration scenario looks like. So it was a dark area in my life. And as I've stated, before going in, I was already pastoring a church. And sometimes, pastors, they get up and speak about what happens in the Bible. We go to different subject matters. So they're ministering for something that maybe they read but have not experienced. And I was one of those persons that ministered about a Paul, a Silas, a Peter. Then I have experienced it for myself. So I think now I'm more effective with talking about a person being incarcerated for unjust causes, as opposed to just reading something out to a congregation. I can really speak from my heart about it.
And tell us a little bit about your book, Shadow of Darkness. Was that also predicated on your experience heading to the penitentiary, or just your experience through the penitentiary system?
The entire book itself talks about the experience that I had during the incarceration. I start the book out in the introduction about the judicial system and sentiment about racism and how it's structured. It's a part of our structure in society, how you're treated as a Black person when you're caught up in the system itself. I talk about in one portion in trying to unify some of the inmates that were there, because the prison system takes advantage of African Americans and others alike with canteen items, with phone calls. They take a lot from you. Like this particular incident, I was on work release. So I was permitted to go out and work in the community. What the system does is they take so much money out of what you receive, your income, for your housing. You are only able to buy certain items from certain vendors. You can buy food items, but in this case, they kept going up on their food items and other products, and the inmates were complaining about it. So I got together with some of them and told them, well, let's not buy canteen for 30 days and see what can happen along that line, if we could negotiate anything. So we have 1,500 men that decided for 30 days not to buy any canteen. Of course, then that caused the problem. And it got to the warden that I was the person that organized it. As a result, I had to go before one of their committees, and they charged me with inciting a riot. So as a result of that, I had to spend 235 days in the hole, that's what they call it. So you're in this small space. In this space, you've got, it's almost like a closet where you have your toilet, your water fountain, and face, bowl, all in one unit. So the place where you're going to deposit your waste is the same unit that you have to drink out of water with or wash your face. So the conditions are so inhumane that, you know, you just wouldn't believe some of the things that I've experienced and see what inmates go through under that scenario. And it was basically as a result of trying to get people to come together, take a stand, and hearing the warden say that you have absolutely no right. You didn't have a right to assemble and bring people together to take a stand because you were being taken advantage of. So with that situation, there was another one where I was working at the Second Harvest Food Bank, and the owner knew my background, and they had something that they wanted to fix, which involved some mechanical engineering. So he told me about what he wanted, the scope of work that he wanted. And I went away and drew up the specifications. I drew up blueprints for him. And he told me that if I could do it, that I could install it. And what they would do is take and compensate my family. They would send funds to my family as a result. So I did all of that, gave it to him, and he hired another contractor to come in and do the work that I had drawn out. And I told him, you know, if I wasn't incarcerated, that could be a potential lawsuit. So those two things is what caused me to end up incarcerated and put in the hole.
In the hole, right. That's, you know, want to welcome G Money Hollywood as well as Derek Henry, regular viewer, Jill Sheridan, thanks for joining. And again, I'm not sure if you see the comments, but Jill Sheridan, she's asking, where were you incarcerated at, Mr. Pastor Hunt?
I was incarcerated in Wisconsin, Jefferson, Wisconsin. That's where I was arrested at Jefferson in their county jail. And I was from there, went to Dodge, Wisconsin, where they do an evaluation of you know, your academics, your educational level. They do physical exams for you, and they make the determination what facility that they're going to send you to. So from there, I was shipped up north, Wisconsin, near Minnesota, at Stanley Correctional Institution. I had to spend 2 years there, which I was there on what they call maximum minimum. From the maximum minimum, I spent 2 years there before going to a minimum, a medium system, and then from there to a minimum and work release. So initially when I went in, because of what the judge charged me with, the type of felony she charged me with, I was in maximum security for a while.
Wow. And let me get another comment as well as more comment from G Money Hollywood, and welcome to the show also, Karen Winston. G Money Hollywood says, Pastor Hunt, it sounds like you were certainly given an unfair shake. Typically an unattended accident due to a health crisis is given a little bit more leniency. Sounds like race played a factor. And Wisconsin, I mean, it's not a state typically known for a lot of people of color. In Jefferson County in particular, what was the racial makeup of the Jefferson County area?
In Jefferson County, Jefferson City, there are about 11,000 people. And unfortunately, the person that I ran into, she was a white woman, but she was a white woman that was politically connected. So even the selection of the jurors was like crazy. One of the jurors that they put on the panel had gone to the same school that the woman had attended. One of the panel members, they lived in the same area as the district attorney. So you have a small, what I call a Mayberry town with white people. that I was sitting in front of these 12 jurors. None of them were a peer group. So they put together this storyline of driving recklessly and causing this accident. And the thing about it that was most unfortunate is that it was a bad scene. I was the only person that was not taken to a hospital for medical evaluation. They actually took me back to the work site and told me to stay there until they returned after they collected evidence and talked to the witnesses there at the scene. So the people that I hit, paramedics transferred them to local hospitals. Me, they took back to the job site, and I had to stay there for 2 hours until they came back. They talked to the district attorney, and the district attorney wanted to keep me over the weekend. So all the weekend, I didn't have any contact with family members. Nobody knew where I was at. It was really an unfortunate situation, but a learning experience all at the same time. So I now know what it feels like when a person is released from prison, of which I would have never known prior to that, because I was so caught up in church and ministering to people, like I said, talking about the gospel. Then I got a chance to see and recognize that there's a different world that I never experienced before. And that world was very horrifying as a result of injustice.
Wow. And hold that thought for a minute, Pastor Hunt. Let me bring Brother Thompson into the conversation, because he's been on my show before, and some of the same viewers, listeners probably heard his story, but I'm going to ask him to give a synopsis about his life prior to going to prison, and his life since he has been released, because it's a great dichotomy of how going to prison does not define your life. And once you get out, there's so much you could do in the world to not just make it a different place, but to make it a better place. And I know I like hearing the story, even though it's a very unfortunate situation with regards to his sister, but that is a story that is so redeeming that you can't help but appreciate what has brought Mr. Thompson to where he is right now. And well, we're in 2026. I met you in 2025. So I say where he's at now in 2026. So introduce yourself to the viewers, the audience, once again, Brother Thompson. And definitely you have to talk about how much being released from prison has made you a very actually prominent person in the community. And you do it all for the love of your son, so he can understand what having a father in his life is all about.
Yeah, of course. First off, thank you again for allowing me to come on your show, Eric. I definitely appreciate it, and happy Martin Luther King Day to all the viewers. Real quick, to be short, my life was a little bit different growing up. Growing up here in the city of Detroit, born and raised, my mother and father both fell victim to the drug era and used. We grew up kind of poor, and I, lacked a lot of stuff at home, and I kind of ran to the streets to look for, validation and love and support, and I found it. I ended up joining the gang at a very young age with the Vice Lords, and that led to a life of crime. At the age of 14, I was first arrested, went to juvenile, and I got arrested I think 3 more times before I eventually went to prison when I was 19 for 8 years. And throughout that time, I continued with my affiliation with the Vice Lords and gang banging and things of that nature. When I came home in 2016, I had a son. I got married to my now ex-wife, and wanted to try to shape my life and do some things better in my life or whatever, which led to me going back to the streets. I kind of fell off the bandwagon. And, a lot of times when you try to turn your life around and then you go back, you kind of go deeper into the rabbit's hole. And that's exactly what happened, which led to my reincarceration, being indicted federally in Detroit's most largest racketeering conspiracy case here known in Detroit, which led to me being federally incarcerated for 4 more additional years. Prior to my incarceration, my sister was killed. My sister, 2 years older, was killed. She was a single mother in the nursing field, and she was carjacked for her car in 2018. She was killed by her assailant and co-defendant. This happened just a month before I was shot multiple times at a friend's house, at another gang member's house. I was shot in my arm, and I was shot in my face, which I now still carry the bullet lodged in my sinus cavity right now. Throughout my previous incarceration, which I was released from prison 10 months ago, throughout my incarceration, something changed in my life, and I gave my life to God. Throughout that time, I began to atone for my behavior. I began to right my wrongs. I dropped my affiliation of my gang, and I said that I was going to become a gang interventionist. And upon my release, I planned on being active in the community and giving back to the same people that I destroyed, the same neighborhoods that I helped to destroy. Also, throughout my incarceration, I wrote 3 books. My first book is published. It's out. It's called Dropping My Flag, Picking Up My Life. And since I've been home, I've been doing exactly that, picking up my life. I've joined a community violence intervention group called the People's Action, where I'm a street outreach worker and mentor. And my job is to help to prevent violence in my particular zone. We work in a zone near 7 Mile in Greenfield. Also, I am a mentor for our Wayne County Justice Impacted Juvenile Diversion Program. And I have about a caseload of about 12 pre-adjudicated youth who've all just come home from the juvenile justice system. And my job is to make sure that they don't reoffend. Eric talked a lot about my son. I have an 8-year-old son. He just turned 8, not even 2 weeks ago. He's the love of my life. And, he's my main focus. And a lot of the things that I'm doing is because I didn't have it done for me. So being present in my son's life is the most important thing. And I want to make sure that I'm the perfect role model and he don't have to go outside of home to find someone to, imitate and, receive love from. So I'm very active in my son's life. His mother and I, we're great and co-parent. We're better as co-parents than we were as husband and wife, but, God is the best of planners. So, we make plans, but, he's the best of planners. So that's pretty much it. Just living a life of service to my community and those around me.
And I want to ask both of you, Pastor Hunt, Brother Thompson, what was it about living in prison, penitentiary, looking forward to coming out, and what was so impactful once you were out that made you say to yourself that I have to make a difference in the community and I'm not going back? So what was that lightning rod that said or made you understand that life was not for you? Being on the outside is where you can make a difference. And neither one can answer first.
Well, for me, the decision to live my life the way I'm living it now didn't happen when I came home. It happened the first day I was incarcerated, when the ATF was telling me that I was facing life in prison for a racketeering charge, also for, a drug charge, drug conspiracy charge, facing a mandatory minimum of 10 years. And I just couldn't fathom me already having 5 prior felonies in which I was guilty and I went to state prison for. But I couldn't imagine, being in prison for 10 years or maybe even for the rest of my life for some things that some other people done. Mind you, I was one of 40 who was indicted on my racketeering charge, and I only knew 7 people. But yet and still, I was being held responsible for all of the people that was, a part of my indictment. So, yeah. So the day I was incarcerated was the day that I left the gang, and I decided that I had to, right my wrongs. And I knew that even if I was going to spend a lot of time in prison, that I wasn't going to do a day in prison still doing what led me to go to prison in the first place.
In comments like what G Money Hollywood just put on the screen, and this is directed to you, Brother Thompson, I'm sorry to hear about your upbringing as a child and with not having the best example set for you from a parent perspective. You are a great warrior with the catastrophes you have endured. And that's a testament, because one of the things, when I first met you, we were at the opening of the Dome over on the east side. And I first met you, and I immediately, I like this brother. I got to get him on my show because you can tell a lot through someone based on how they talk to you, look in your eye. You can see the sincerity in their passion to want to make a difference. And I saw that in you. And I think within a week of meeting you, I had you on my show the first time because I was just so impressed, hearing about you writing books, hearing about your, and you just, every time you talk about your son, just the way your face lights up. And that's important because even today, because, I'm a part of Michigan Urban Youth Alliance. That's who I work for. I'm also a mentor, board director member there. We had a basketball tournament. And one of the fathers, he didn't have the funds. I mean, he didn't know it was a cost to get into the event. But me, myself, being a former athlete, I know how important it was to have a parent or a support system at your events. And I just told the brother, come on in. And I even said to the guard, because, you have to have guards at these events. I said, I know when I was an athlete, and I'll never forget, my 12th grade year, I was a pretty good track runner. And I lived right down the street from Martin Luther King High School, where this PSL championship was at. And I was dating a young lady that was going to Cass at the time. She had promised me she was coming to the meet. Parents right down the street, family members, friends from the neighborhood promised me they were coming to the meet, and they weren't there. Nobody showed up. And that really took me for a loop, and it just took me off my game. And I think in my heat for the 200 of the 7 lanes, I think I came in maybe 6th or 7th place. Mm. And I was one of the best 200 runners. So it's important to be there for your kids. And that's when the guy said, well, I didn't know, I don't have the money. I was like, come on in, because I heard the mother, and I'm not sure if they were husband and wife. I heard the mother say, how disappointed he would be if you were not here. That right there, I was like, man, I have to let this guy in. And so and that's why I admire you for, my kids are older, but I admire you for the impact you're making in your son's life. And he's at a very young age. Yeah. And you did not let your situation deter you from that being a bump in the road, an obstacle that would prevent you from being a great father. And not just a great father, because you're a mentor to young people as well. So you walk in like you talking. That's why I appreciate you so much. And I said, let me get him on the show again with Pastor Hunt, because there are 2 different types of paths that you two had that, took you to prison. And that's why I think the listening audience need to understand that, mistakes happen. People make mistakes. But how you move on from the mistakes is what makes you a better person. So that's why I appreciate, both of you and what you're doing. Just like what Miss Sheila said, the 7 Mile area needs all the encouraging direction for the youth. And that's very, very true, because we have a very wayward society right now, unfortunately. And that's just the society of the village and the community we live in. It has nothing to do with the state as a whole, the country as a whole. But if you don't take notice of what's going on in your immediate village, your immediate community, then that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's true. And to speak on the 7 Mile in the area in which I'm working in, we know this is on the west side. It's like the most hot zone, as they call it. Just like to mirror on the east side on 7 Mile, like in the red zone, is where a lot of violent crime and gun violence is happening at. So
your zip code on the 7 Mile, what zip code is that? I know the east side, the area of 7 Mile is 48205 or 48234. What zip code are you in on the west side?
48235.
Oh, 235. Okay.
48235. So we work primarily in the Henry Ford area, but even all the way back down to Mumford. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And G Money, you're right. You have a good memory, because when he was on my show previously, he gave his testimony, and I think the comment you're making now is pretty much the same comment you made about 3-4 months ago. Mm-hmm. And with regard to you, Pastor Hunt, how was that experience being in prison, then coming out of prison? Because I'm sure you were ministering before you went to prison. You were ministering while you were there, and you minister now. But what difference is it now coming out of prison? Does it make you look at things differently with regards to how important it is to make an impact on society, positive impact?
Absolutely. While being incarcerated, I was able to be around and experience men, African-American men, if given the opportunity, they would live a life that people, a normal life per se, if there's a definition for normal. But some of these guys were not privileged to have the same privileges that I had as far as education is concerned. So because I've seen the lack of quite a few not even having GEDs, I stopped crying about why this happened to me, why me? And then when I started talking about, well, for what reason? And I looked around, knowing the level of education that I have, I started working with different groups of African-American men to help bring them up to a level where they could get a GED or fine-tune themselves when they were getting ready to be released, trying to help give instructions, even trying to talk to them about getting involved in the trades, because I was in business before being incarcerated. I had gone through a 5-year apprenticeship program for plumbing, pipe fitting. I went to the Milwaukee School of Engineering and Western Michigan University. So I used the tools that I had on the academical level to help fine tune somebody that was disadvantaged. But if they had the tools necessary, they would be, would have been able to have a better stance in life. So I've seen that people that are incarcerated are, especially African Americans, they're really not the criminals that some people believe that they are. These are souls. These are people that have feelings and emotions, and they really want to try to better themselves, as opposed to the stigma that's put on them and the propaganda that's run against them by media. And because I own business now, and what I experienced in prison, these men need to be economically empowered some kind of way. As a result of the business that the Lord has blessed me with, I'm able to help young people get in the trade. We have a part of our model is to bring these young African-American men together because we're signatory with the local unions. The leverage that we have, if we hire them, then we can get them accelerated into the union as electricians, as plumbers, as pipe fitters, as sheet metal workers. And my main focus is focusing in on African-American young men and women that are interested in trades so that they can have, they're empowered. And they're empowered so that they don't have to make McDonald's money, an apprenticeship program. Like I said, we could help them get involved in that. A first-year apprentice in the plumbing industry starts out right around $25 an hour. The journeyman scale is $88 an hour, and it could be more. So I find myself in a position in prison trying to help enhance life for betterment when they are released. And because I'm released now, I can take that even a step further and employ people that are disadvantaged to give them the heads up or to give them an opportunity to be advanced as opposed to the struggles that I went through trying to get in the trade. I got into the trade back as an indentured apprentice in 1979. And it was a struggle trying to get in the trade because it was like a uncle, nephew, son trade as far as white people were concerned. And I had to really struggle to get into that trade, to get in the union. And now I'm in a position where I can help young people get into the union, into an apprenticeship program, hire them, employ them, and totally empower them, not only spiritually, but so they can also have the funds that are necessary to live a good life. There's a career in trade that equates to good life, good living.
And you both have pulpits, different types. I mean, CVI, community violence interventionist, you have that pulpit. You have the pulpit of the gospel in the church, Pastor Hunt. When you are speaking to individuals, and it's not a matter of bringing up your past, but what encouragement do you provide to people without telling them about your past to get them to not go down the wrong path and do right by your Lord and Savior? So what do you do to encourage people to straight and narrow, saying that it's subjective and that's a subject that, or a phrase that people use, but how do you, particularly you, Brother Thompson, how do you speak to young men, and even some older than you, I'm sure, to get them to understand that the life they live in is not the life they want?
Well, without speaking to my past history, I just tell them, look at their surroundings, look at their environment, look at those around them that is prominent, and look at those around them that's not doing so good. Oftentimes we can learn a lot from other people. You don't have to necessarily go through the same unfortunate situations that I myself went through or someone else. But you know how they say you can learn something from a fool. So really, if you look at your circumstances and look at those around you, you can learn from them,
And G Money Hollywood makes a very interesting point, Pastor Hunt, and I agree with him because, I met you just by happenstance. I was at the Eastern Market, just wandering aimlessly, looking at all the stuff, and then I ran into you and your wife, and we spoke. Even though it was just my first time meeting you, I was aware of you because your wife told me about the great guy she met and she married, and that 2-minute conversation turned to 30 minutes, 45 minutes, because I was so impressed with just going back and forth. And I know Nicole was like, okay, come on, we got to go. But one conversation led to another. Same way when I met Brother Thompson, because you are meeting someone and you are impressed by them. You just want to be in a space for as long as you can, because there's no telling you're going to see them again. So I took advantage of that. And with that being said, you know, G Money Hollywood makes a great point. You are also a strong soul. It's obvious that you have faith and have persevered. With that kind of time that you served unjustly, most people would be scarred, you know, psychologically, physically, but you have not let that define you. You have gone on to be a beacon for others to see, and you have an added advantage of, you know, being able to have a pulpit and speaking to your congregation, but you have that advantage that was given to you by the man above. He knew your gift, just like he knows Brother Thompson's gift. And you guys are both taking advantage of that to make society better, those around you better, and, you know, give people an opportunity to see what the right path is. I don't want to say righteous because that's, again, a subjective word, but you're getting people an opportunity to go down the right path. So, with, you know, looking at what G Money Hollywood said about you, Pastor Hunt, how does that make you feel? Well, and I'm assuming what's on the screen.
I definitely appreciate the comment. One thing that, as you were stating, and I held this to be true while I was going through my situation, you cannot define yourself or define your life by what somebody else thinks you are. You can be whoever you want to be. However a man thinks of himself, he can be that. You can prophesy and speak your way into victorious situations. When I went in prison, the guards started out calling me Inmate Hunt. And I wouldn't answer to Inmate Hunt because I was not Inmate Hunt. I didn't think of myself as an inmate. So I told the man, I said, by the time I leave from this place, you will be calling me Mr. Hunt instead of Inmate Hunt. And that's what I answer to, because I stood on the fact of knowing who I am, my purpose in life, and I wasn't going to let anybody or anything else defer that. What I do as far as the pulpit is concerned, even the ministry, the name of the ministry is prophetic, that your latter shall be greater. And that's the thing that I tell people, regardless of where you've come from, where you are right now, your latter life will be greater if you understand how to utilize the principles of life in order to receive the abundance and live in prosperity. You hear a lot of pastors talk about, or preachers talk about the prosperity ministries. I think you can prosper off of the gifts and the talents that God has placed in you. You just got to know how to work it, how to stir that thing up, bring it out, and make your gift and talent make money for you. And you don't have to economically depend on anybody else. So certainly enough, because I thought of myself not as an inmate, when I was released, the same gentleman that called me inmate ended up calling me Mr. Hunt. Keep your head up. So you are only who you think you are. You are only who you think or what you think you can be. And I happen to be a person that think that all things are possible to those that believe. You got to have faith in yourself. You've got to have a vision. You've got to have a plan. If a man doesn't have a plan, he's a dangerous person to work with. So while I was incarcerated, I planned on how I was going to succeed, the amount of money that I was going to make, where my business was going to go, the book that I was going to write, how my business was going to prosper, what I was going to do in the music industry. So sitting down wasn't a problem with me because I was working my plan of what I was going to do once I was released. When I got out of my exodus and left my Pharaoh, I already knew where I was going. Mm-hmm. Now, the type of felon that they charged me with, there were certain things that they said that I couldn't do, but I worked my way around the system and was able to and continuing to fulfill the purpose that I have. So you got to understand even your purpose in life. And at your latter shall be greater is some of the things that we try to do is empower you, stir the gift up or talent that you have, and make an opportunity available for you to market who you are and to become truly who God has designed you to be.
And that's interesting, Pastor Hunt, because last week when we spoke to our youth group, I led the discussion, and one of the things I told these young people, and they're 6th through 12th graders, you have to know your purpose. You have to know your purpose, and if you don't know it, you still have time to figure it out. And once you do figure it out, boom, that's your success. And that's just like with Brother Thompson, having an 8-year-old son. Without a doubt, you in no way want him to duplicate your life. So how do you keep yourself grounded, Brother Thompson, to ensure that he does not repeat the mistakes you made? And I say the mistakes based on, you talked about your family life. How do you prevent him from the streets being his family?
Yeah. Well, I just go above and beyond, man. I go above and beyond. I don't lean on my own understanding. I have a mentor. So even though that I mentor youth, I have a mentor and I seek therapy, as well as, I put my faith in God. I'm a principled man, and I believe in a higher power, and I let that be my foundation. And from that's what I build on with my son. Obviously, I get a lot of practice and mentorship and rearage with the youth that I deal with daily. My job is a 24/7 job. I don't have any days off. Every day, I'm seeking to help. Just to foster a positive atmosphere and environment for young Black men, and those that look like me. So with all of that, steel sharpening steel, my son is a direct benefit from all the work that I do. And I'm a part of a great organization, the People's Action, who does a lot of outreach work and has a plethora of different programs that they offer residents here in the city of Detroit. And, I take advantage of that, and I make sure that I have my son around, and all the work that I do, he's familiar with my job, and what I do every day, as well as I own my clothing line, my clothing brand, PYPO, Put Your People On. So my son, he see everything that I do, and I'm transparent with all my actions, and he's able to see for himself.
And with that being said, when he's 8 years old, so he's and I speaking as an 8-year-old, seeing an 8-year-old kid and not being, still a lot of growth to go through. Have you told him about your past? And if not, at what point will you tell him with an understanding of not wanting him to surely not follow in your footsteps? What do you think would be the best time if you have not told him yet?
Yeah, no, I've told him. I've told my son, and obviously my son being around me so much, he hear my story often, and he hear other people, speak about my previous and past life. But he also hear a lot of the the congratulations and the how people say they're proud of me for turning my life around, and all the accolades that I am receiving today. But I'm very open with my son and honest with my son. I like to believe that as he get a little older, and he can understand a little more, because I don't think he really fully understand what prison is. Despite he even visiting me, my son's mother taking him to visit me when he was young, when he was just 3.5 and 4 years old and 5 years old, to come and visit me. But as a young child, I don't think that he really truly understand. But when he gets older, I like to believe that he won't ever even believe that his father lived the life that I lived, you know what I mean? Because of the life that I'm living now and the life that I'm helping others to have.
And it speaks to the testament, like, G Money made another comment to you, Pastor Hunt. All I can say is that you have God's favor because, again, the average person, regardless of how mentally strong you are, has a breaking point humanistically and spiritually. So it had to be God, of which your wife replied directly to G Money Hollywood. You are absolutely right. Correct. It could only be God who kept Pastor Hunt through. And going into the system, you are already a man of faith. Being upset about your circumstance would not have helped you at all. So you pray from a different perspective. Yes, you pray, can't wait till the day I get out. But did you manifest the prayer into knowing that once you got out, what you would be doing?
I knew the ability, my capability going in. And like I stated, while I was in, I didn't just sit in the corner and cry, why, or this pity party. I was
planning. Oh, it's me, right, pity, right.
I was planning at that time what I was going to do when I was released, how I was going to be able to reestablish myself, reestablish the business, the magnitude of the business. So I was there planning all at the same time. I appreciate the fact of hearing Brother Thomas talk about his son, because to me, it's a biblical principle in Genesis when God says, duplicate your own kind, carrying your son with you and allowing your son to see you in action, you're duplicating. When I'm doing some business transactions, I'll take my two sons with me so they know how business works. They know how to look in the face of a white man and take their stand regardless of what they're trying to push at him, what agenda they're trying to push on them. They see me take a stand, they take a stand. They see Brother Thomas's, see him take the stand that he's taken as far as the life turnaround, then the son will do the same thing. So we are products of, or we duplicate ourselves. Lawyer sons sometimes become lawyers. Doctor sons will become doctors because they are in that environment. So if we put our people in the right environment and carry them along with us, that thing will rub off on them. We're there, we can protect him and guide him, and he's doing that. And I can appreciate the time that he's taken out with his son to develop him. Although, everybody has a past. I had a past, but you don't have to live in the past.
Right,
we're
right.
in the now. You're in the now, and African culture, when their children are born, they give them a name relative to their purpose. When we're born, we start looking up names to name our children. They already know, perhaps in their, in their spirit, what their children should be, and they give them a name, a purpose name like that. So he's praying, and I'm praying also for him that his son emulates what he's doing right now, that he sees the other side, and he'll take that side and even increase the betterment of life for a generation to come. So.
And in these closing minutes, and actually, your wife pretty much read my mind, because this was how I was going to close out the show to both of you, because both of you have been given God's grace, mercy, and protection. What do you, and I'd like to have both of you on again, without a doubt, what do you see going forward, not for yourself, but for the community and the people you serve? What would be your greatest gift to your community and the people you serve? We're not promised tomorrow, so, we all know that. But knowing that we're not promised tomorrow, what would you want to see in society if you were not here?
My mind would go right to Ezekiel when he's seen the valley of dry bones. When people thought that because they were decimated, their life was gone, he was able to speak a word and the bones became alive. history is important. If we're able to speak positive things into the lives of our children, speak positive affirmations, those things that we see in our communities that is considered death, we can change that around so that they too can become alive and enjoy the abundance of life.
And for you, Brother Thompson?
I just want us as a people to get it together. We have to do for self, or we're going to continue to suffer the consequences. And that's just it. The violence, the ignorance, the lack of having has been going on for too long. But we used to be kings. We used to be queens. And I just want us as a whole to get back to royalty.
And with that being said, I want to thank both of you for joining me tonight on Dr. Martin Luther King's holiday. And well, birthday was recently too. And it's been a pleasure because I think one of the things we have to be very cognizant of, and I was talking to one of my mentees today, and he was asking about, certain things. He was asking about, he stated, the quote with regards to Dr. King saying how he feels through integration, he pretty much lit a house fire. He was asking me about that. And last week we had a discussion. One of the other mentees talked about Frederick Douglass. And when he brought up Frederick Douglass, I asked him to go back and read the I Have a Dream speech from August 28th, 1963. And then also read the Barack Obama acceptance speech once he became president back in 2008, November 2008. And, take those three, any one of Frederick Douglass' speeches, then the I Have a Dream speech, then the acceptance speech. And we need to ask ourselves, and I posted this on Facebook today, and I know we follow each other, Brother Thompson. If the I Have a Dream speech can still be stated today and have the same meaning and significance, it speaks to what you just said, Brother Thompson. Have we progressed? Into my opinion, this is Eric Brown's perspective. I say no. Hate is a tough word. I do not like when people sing "We Shall Overcome" because we haven't yet. I do not like people acting like Dr. King's dream has become a reality because it hasn't. And we have to do better as a people. You hit the nail on the head, Brother Thompson. We came from kings and queens. We need to start acting like it. Yep. In 2026, we still have, and it's so unfortunate to say this, we still have a long way to go. And that's not something we should be saying when at once upon a time, one of the most educated people on this planet were Black people. Mm-hmm. So we have to do better. You know better, you do better. It's time for us to start knowing better so we can do better. So again, with that being said, I want to thank both of you for being here tonight. I want to thank all the viewers, Pastor Nicole Blackman, G Money Hollywood, Karen Winston, Jill Sheridan, Mr. 1213. I cannot do this show without those that come in, take time out of their busy schedule to watch the show. Karen Winston, I mentioned Jill Sheridan, Miss Sheila. Thank you all. And on that note, peace and love. Good night. We have to do this again, Pastor Hunt and Brother Thompson.
Be glad to.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll be in touch. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All right. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for viewing tonight's episode of Detroit in Black and White Presents Reality Strikes of Eric Brown. Enjoy the rest of your evening. For those watching the game, get back to the game. Enjoy that. And I see that's what G Money Hollywood did. He left a few minutes early. I'm about to get back to the game. Peace and love. Until next Monday, the 26th of January. Be good to one another. Live your life purposeful and on purpose. Good night.